So today I'm going to show you guys how to install a heater for your cab. This is going to be the heater core style heater. So you're going to have to run some coolant lines. But in my opinion, these are the best heaters you can get because they're the most efficient. Before I get showing you guys exactly what you need for the install, I do want to adjust a few things. So a lot of people have asked me lately, what's with this pipe coming out of my hood? So this is my stack pipe. This is an exhaust pipe that I made. And the reason I have to have this bungee cord on it is because without it, the pipe rattles and it drives me crazy. So just putting a little bit of tension down on it gets rid of the rattling noise and it sounds really good. Now I do plan on coming up with some kind of a system so I do not need this bungee cord. I'm gonna have some kind of a rubber mount underneath the hood so that you won't be able to see it anymore. And that'll keep the exhaust stack tight so that it doesn't rattle. But I just haven't gotten that far yet. I really never got back to it after I installed this. So to open my hood, I just have to remove this bungee, slide out the exhaust, and then the hood just pops open just like it always did. So here under the hood, you can see where the exhaust is coming out. This is your factory muffler right up over here. So I kept the factory muffler in, and all I did was cut off the exhaust tip that came out the front of the hood bonnet right here. And what I did was I welded on like 45s and 90s to be able to give myself enough clearance between this hood bonnet and the engine. And then basically I just elbowed up and I drilled a hole through the hood and threw my stack pipe into it. I mainly just did this for fun. You guys know that I like to fabricate. I wanted to see if it was possible. I'd never actually seen a Kubota BX with a stack pipe before. It's a very tight fit, as you guys can see. So it required a lot of measuring and angles and welding. But I eventually got it made up and I actually got it working. So I thought that was pretty cool all in itself. And when I installed this, I wasn't sure if I was actually going to keep it or not. So what I did was I saved the factory muffler. This is actually an aftermarket muffler that I welded onto. And in that way, if I didn't like the stack pipe, all I have to do is remove this aftermarket muffler and install my factory muffler back on it. So really the only modification I actually made physically to the tractor was this little hole here that I punched in the hood, which has this little rubber grommet around it. Like I said, if I ever get sick of it, it's just a 10-minute job to swap the muffler back out with the original and I'll be all set. So I just want to get that out of the way. If you guys do want to see exactly how I built the stack pipe, my thought process of why I did it and how I did it, go on my channel and click under the playlist tab. You'll see a playlist called Exhaust Stack. You guys can watch the few videos that I did building this stack and explaining how I did it. Just figured I'd mention that here as I've been getting a lot of questions about my exhaust stack lately, so I just wanted to clear that up. I do plan on putting a flapper on the top of my exhaust stack, which I have right here. So I plan on putting this on pretty soon, and it'll help direct the exhaust and the soot off the front, so that it hopefully won't be landing on my hood anymore. The other thing I wanted to speak to you guys about was the cab heater that I got with my cab itself. So here's the cab heater that I got. This heater came free with the cab. Anybody spending over $500 on originaltractorcab.com gets this free cab heater. Now this is just an electric heater and it puts quite a bit of load on your alternator. Not to mention it doesn't really work super well under like 40 degrees. Anything above 40 it doesn't do too bad, but anything under 40 and it really can't keep up at all. Below 30 degrees I would say it's probably a good hand warmer at best. You know, I keep my hands in front of it to warm my fingers up. But that's about all it does. So that is why I'm replacing this today with the heater core style heater, and that's going to be much more effective in bringing heat to the cab, and it's not going to be drawing tons of power from my charging system. So with all that being said, let me show you exactly what I got over here and show you what you're going to need for this install. All right, so what you guys are going to need for this install is your heater core style heater itself. This heater right here that I have is actually from wish.com, believe it or not. This is a full Chinese heater, came directly from China. It took about a month to get here. Spent $30 on this cab heater, and just by looking at it, I'm really impressed with it so far. It's got a real thick powder coat finish on it. You can see it's got a decent sized little heater core in there. Nice little unit. There's 3 exhaust holes here with little nipples coming off of them. So if you choose to put like a little rubber hose off each one of them, you could have one hose going to your windshield, one going to your body, and one going to the floor. For now, I'm just gonna try it the way it is and see how it goes. So here you got your inlet and your outlet to your heater core. Right here, these are 5/8, and this is a full copper radiator from my understanding. You got your power and ground here for your fans. You got a couple fans here on the back that keep constant flow across that heater core, and that's what gives you the heat. So over here you guys can see I got some fittings. So this is what's actually going to get your coolant from your engine to your heater. So the first thing you're going to need is a fitting or adapter. So you could tap in your thermostat housing, and that's going to be for your supply line going to your inlet of your heater. And then on the exit pipe here, that's going to be a return line. From there, it's going to be returning to your lower radiator hose, which is where you're going to need this 1x1 by 5/8 T. You could buy these online. I just got this one out of a local hardware store. This is actually came right out of the plumbing section. This is a 1x1 by 1/2 inch NTP, where I just got a 1/2 inch to 5/8 nipple and threaded that in place. So that's what I'm going to be using, but you can actually go online and order like a full plastic 1x1 by 5/8 T and install this. We're just going to be cutting the lower radiator hose in half, installing it on either end here, and then your return line from your heater core is going to go directly into that 5/8 fitting, and you'll be all set for your return line. I did also buy this coupler here. This is just a 1 inch to 1 inch coupler. For $3, I felt it was worth having. That way, if I ever want to remove this T, I can remove this T and simply install this coupler right here. Lastly, what you guys are going to need is some kind of a ball valve. This is going to go between your thermostat housing and your heater core. And you're going to want this so that on warmer days, you are able to control the amount of coolant that's going to your heater core. So on a really warm day, you might want to actually shut this valve, and that'll limit the amount of flow that's going to your heater core. But you're definitely going to want a ball valve, because if not, you have no way to control the amount of heat that this thing is putting out. So I highly suggest you getting a ball valve, some type of a ball valve. Any type will really work, but I would stick to a typical water valve, and it should work just fine for you guys. So that's everything you need to install this kit. I also got 15 feet of heater hose. I'm sure it's more than enough. This is some good quality hose. It's made by Gates, and like I said, it's 5/8 of an inch. So the first thing I'm going to do here is remove my hood bonnet. I may even remove the hood as well, because it's just one bolt in the center along with the shock dampener. But I actually get this whole hood out of the way. That way maybe you guys can see a little bit better of what I'm doing in here. Let me get that done first, and we'll go from there. Out of the way. For those of you who are wondering what kind of headlights I'm running, I am running the LED headlights. I got these off of eBay, so here's a good look at them. I don't know what the part number is, but at least now that you guys seen them, maybe you could find them on eBay. They've been in here for 2 years now. I haven't had any issues, and they are extremely bright. If you guys do remove your hood, just be careful. There's a couple brass bushings. There's one on one side and one on the other. Just don't lose them. Okay, so now that I got my hood and my bonnet off, I'm going to go ahead and raise up my loader. All right, so I got the loader raised up. Whenever you guys are doing this, be sure to put some kind of a piece of wood underneath your ram here. Typically, you'd want to go off your loader frame with a piece of 2x4 up to the bottom of your ram here. This way, if the hydraulics ever gave out, the loader's not going to come crashing down on you. All right, so I got you guys seated over at the right side of the tractor, facing towards the cab. So this piece right here itself is the thermostat housing, and just above it is where the thermostat is. So if you ever had to replace your thermostat, this top cap would come right off. But we're not going to be doing that. What we're going to be doing is tapping into the thermostat housing for the feed line to our heater core. So on my tractor, you can see I got a couple of threaded plugs. One is right here, and this is a 3/8 inch plug. And then down here, it looks like it's a 1/4 inch plug. This is just to relieve any air that may be stuck in the engine. So this would be used for bleeding purposes. If you ever changed your coolant out and you had an airlock, you would crack this loose to allow the air to escape. But this top one, it's a 3/8 plug. This is actually the one you're going to be removing for your feed line into your heater core. Now, not every single Kubota BX is going to have this. Some of them won't have any plugs here, and instead you're just going to see a flat surface right here. In which case, you're going to have to use a 9/16 drill bit, and you're going to have to drill a hole into your thermostat housing. You're going to have to use a 3/8-18 NTP tap, and that's what you're going to tap this hole with. And that'll give you the correct size to install the adapter for your feed line for your cab heater. Now, if you don't want to drill a hole in this, that's understandable, because it's kind of a risky thing to do. You'll also get metal shavings in your coolant system, so you will have to drain your entire system and flush it. So another alternative that lots of people do is they buy another one of those T's that I was showing you earlier, and they'll just cut their upper radiator hose instead, and that's how you get your feed in return for those systems. The only downside with going off your upper radiator hose is you won't get heat as fast, because you have to wait for this thermostat to open to allow the coolant to come through and heat your cab heater. One nice part about doing it here on your thermostat housing is you'll actually be able to bypass the thermostat. So as soon as the engine heats that coolant's going to get sent right to your heater core, and you're going to have faster heat in your cab. Okay, so I've got my pan ready underneath, and what I'm going to be using to remove this plug is an 8mm Allen socket. Now I'm just going to see if I can loosen this plug slowly and let the coolant slowly trickle out until it stops dripping. Probably just going to lose what's mainly in the thermostat housing itself. Okay, so I got my Teflon tape onto my fitting here. I'm going to thread this on into place. Okay, so now I just got to grab a wrench and tighten this up. And it's already stopped dripping, so that's good. Definitely make sure you have a gallon or two of coolant when you do this. I'm gonna call that good. So now what I'm gonna do is get my heater hose and my ball valve and get this at least started. I'll probably do a short piece coming off of this nipple here, going to the ball valve, and then I'll do a long piece going off the ball valve and run that into the cab. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stick my 5/8 hose on this nipple here. Okay, that's a nice snug fit. Okay, so now I got my hose on there. I'm just gonna give myself about maybe 2 or 3 feet here. I'm gonna make a cut, and that way I can figure out exactly where I want my ball valve to be. Okay, so I cut about 3 foot off this hose. I'm gonna run this hose right underneath the intake here. Gonna have it coil over like this. And I think I'm gonna put my ball valve somewhere around this area here by the injection pump. So I could pop the hood open, and if I wanna turn the valve, it'll be right there, easily accessible. Okay, so this is just a 1/2 inch ball valve. So we got 1/2 inch thread. I'm gonna throw some Teflon tape on these and thread them into place. We'll snug them up and we'll get this valve installed. Be all set. All right, so like I said before, I'm gonna put this ball valve right about here. So I'm gonna make a cut on this end of the hose. Put my hose clamp on. Slide that back in place. We should be all set there. So I'm gonna get the other end on here. I'm gonna run it up into the cab, and then we can start on doing the return line. Okay, here's my other end. So there is the factory fuel filter right there. Just ran right behind it, straight down underneath it, and right over top of my fuel filter mod and directly into my cab. So that was a nice easy run. So now I just have to cut my lever down a little bit so that I could open and close this. So I'll cut that down at the end, but aside from that, we should be all set. So now I'm gonna go inside the cab and leave myself about 3 foot, and I'm gonna cut it off, and then we're gonna use that hose to run the return line. All right guys, so now we're gonna prep the T for the return line. And like I've been doing before, I'm just gonna put some Teflon tape on this and thread it on in there nice and snug. Now, depending on what T you guys get, you may have to cut this back a little bit because there's really not a lot of room on that lower radiator hose, but I'll show you that when we get there. But worst case scenario, you might have to cut this back a little bit so you can squeeze this T in place. Okay, just enough Teflon left. That should be plenty. Okay, let's get this installed. All right guys, so now I got the T all set up. I did end up cutting it back some. You could see I left 1 rib on each side. This definitely shortened it quite a bit. I probably shortened it by at least 3 inches. So this is gonna help me get it in here because this is a very tight fit. So here's your lower radiator hose. This end here, going this way, goes to your radiator. So what you're gonna wanna do is cut this right after this bend here towards the radiator side. So I'm gonna end up cutting this hose right around here just after this bend. Then you got to fish this T in there, and you got to clamp it on either end. So this is definitely the hardest part about the entire job. So this is definitely going to take you a while, and unfortunately I can't record it because there's just no way I could have the camera in here while I'm trying to fish this thing in there and, you know, make my cuts and whatnot. I'm going to get this in here off camera, and then as soon as I got it done, I will show you guys what I did, and I'll let you know how it went. All right guys, so I got the piece cut. You can see the coolant is draining into this bucket here. So you can see there's the piece I cut, and it's right after this bend here. So now what I got to do is try to fish that T in there and get my clamps in place. Once I get this thing tight, I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so I got the T installed. I know it's kind of tough to see, but there it is in there. I just cut it where I showed you guys, and I was able to get the backside in first, and then I was able to get the front piece on after. So it was definitely a little bit tricky to get in there. You might have to face this nipple a different direction. I faced this 5/8 nipple going out towards the reservoir, and that way I could run the hose right up along with this reservoir line, right up and then over. I'm gonna come down, meet up with this line here, and then back down into the cab. But depending on what kind of T you have and how big it is, you may have to face it a different direction, like down, or maybe even towards the inside here, towards the alternator. Now what we're gonna do is get the 5/8 line hooked up to this 5/8 brass nipple, and I'm gonna run my line up, and we'll mate it up with this one, and we'll go from there. I'm gonna come right down here alongside the reservoir with the hose. Okay, so I got that hose on a nipple now, so I'm gonna tighten that clamp up, and as you can see, I'm gonna run it right up alongside the coolant reservoir, and then we're gonna come up over here, right alongside the other feed hose here. Okay guys, so as you can see, I've got it running up the coolant reservoir, I've got it going right over the top, and then I'm going right underneath the upper radiator hose, and from there, I'm coming back down and around. Come around the thermostat housing like that, and I'm just gonna lay it down right with this other hose here, and I'm gonna follow the same exact path all the way down into the cab. So that should go something just like that. And then that way it matches the other hose, and we don't have hoses spread out all over the place. So I'm gonna take the same path right underneath the fuel filter. and the fuel filter mount, and then we're gonna come right down here and go into the cab. Just like that, there we go. And now I could feed this down and into the cab with the other one there. We should be all set now. We got our coolant lines completely run. They're going into the cab here, and I did change one thing up here. Instead of running them like I showed you guys in the beginning, I ran them right in between the cab and the core support here. Instead of that, I actually ended up going underneath the floor with it, and they come up right here by the pedal, because I found out after looking at some pictures online that's what they actually give you this big square hole here for. So you can see it's a big square at the end of the brake pedal. So they actually do this for your heater lines. So you can bend this up and it's completely out of the way of the brake pedal. So they will come straight up and they're gonna go right into the bottom of my heater. So this should work out really good. So now my next step here is to remove the old electric heater. So that's just a couple plugs. I actually have it unplugged as it is. So here is the heater plug. I had to make a little plug for it because they don't want you to leave them plugged in. So they leave the power on, and if you leave them plugged in, they'll actually drain your battery. And I think they do this so that it forces you to unplug them, because maybe they're afraid that they're gonna burn your cab down or something, so they want you to unplug them. I got it unplugged already, so all I gotta do here is cut a couple zip ties where this bracket here is zip tied to the post, and this thing will come right out. And I plan to mount the new heater the exact same way. I'm just gonna zip tie it here to this main post, and we could route our coolant lines into the bottom of it, and we should be all set. See if I can get in here and just cut these zip ties. I got one here, and there's one zip tie up here. Should lift right out of there. Okay, so I got the old heater out. I'll get the new one in. And you guys can see why I bought this thing. It's the perfect size for this. Goes right exactly where I want it. I'm keeping the coolant lines on the bottom as well as the power and ground for the fans. This right here is the upper frame posts. So I got these two brackets that came with this heater. So I'm just gonna take these zip ties and zip tie it just like I had the other one right to the post. What's nice about the zip ties is if I need to rotate it, this will pivot around on a post. So if I wanna bring it out a little bit, I can, or bring it in, I can. Okay, there's one. You can see it's already holding it with just one zip tie. Okay, so that's all mounted up now. You can see how nice that is. If I want to rotate it, it stays. I'm really happy with the fitment of this, and I'm really happy with it overall for $30 that I spent on it. I think it's one of the best heaters I could have got for the money. I'm really happy with this heater so far. We just got to get the bottom radiator hoses all hooked up. So we just got these two to plumb in. All right, so now I got you guys looking at the bottom of the heater. So now I got to line these hoses up. I'm going to cut off the extra and connect them to these two outlets here. Doesn't matter which hose goes to what, so I'm just gonna put whatever hose, you know, lines up better with which one. So I'll probably do it just like this here. So I'm gonna cut these and put them on, clamp them, and then after that we'll get the power and ground hooked up and test it out. Okay guys, now I'm just gonna grab a couple jumper wires and hook up the power and ground here so we can try this thing out. The black wire here is ground and the green wire is positive. So now what we gotta do is top it off with coolant. I'm gonna start it up and let it run. This may have an airlock in it, we gotta see. So what I'm gonna do is run it for a while, and if it seems to be airlocked, what I'm gonna do is shut the engine off. I will remove one of these hoses and start it again, and I'll run it until coolant comes out of one of these hoses. And then once I got coolant flowing out of the return hose, I will stick it back on there and we should be all set. So let's get this thing filled up and we'll start it up and see what happens. I think we only lost maybe 2 quarts, so pour a couple quarts in here, see how much it takes to fill this thing here. Okay, she's full now. I'm actually going to leave the radiator cap off for now, let it kind of work some of the air out, and then we'll go from there. So now I'm just going to let it run, and we'll see if we get any heat. The coolant hoses are getting warm. Now I'll know I have an airlock if one of these hoses is hot and the other one's cold. then I'll know there's an airlock inside the heater core here. All right guys, so it's been idling now for about, I don't know, 2 minutes, and I am already getting warm air out of this thing. So to show you guys, I got this little temp gun. It's already 100 degrees, the air coming out of here. 131, almost 140. I'm gonna let this thing warm up the rest of the way, and I'll bring you guys back as soon as it's all the way warm. Okay, so here's what it looks like inside the cab. I'm gonna check the airflow back here and see what the temp is. 145 degrees way back here. It's got to be easily a foot off of it. Let me go back even farther. 150, 137. Come back even more. So I got 150 degree air blowing on me all the way in the seat. So that's going to be plenty warm. This will probably blow me right out of here now if I wanted it to. So let me shut this thing off. We'll get the tractor back together and we'll go from there. All right guys, so I got everything here buttoned up. I did end up cutting this valve. You can see the lever here on the valve. I cut it down nice and short. It's about 1 inch long now. So you can see I can reach right in there. I could close it without it interfering with anything. So that's closed, that's open. In the summertime, I don't want this on. I just pop the hood up, reach my arm down here, and shut that valve off. It's tucked away nice and neat, can't even see it. So everything turned out really nice. I did check, I had no leaks. So let's get this hood bonnet back on, and we should be all set. All right guys, so that's gonna be it for the install. It actually went pretty smoothly. The hardest part, like I said before, is gonna be hooking up that T on the right-hand side of the tractor here on your lower radiator hose. But once you get that done, the rest of it's pretty smooth sailing. Come take a look at the heater. So that's how it turned out. Really happy with it. Like I said, I just gotta wire it in still, along with all the rest of my cab accessories. So hope to start that maybe tomorrow. And hopefully by the end of the weekend, I could finally have all the stuff wired in. Because I do have that special product that I've been meaning to show you guys for a while now. So hopefully that'll be the next video coming up. And then all this will be done. And then hopefully we can get out there, if this weather stays nice, and we could use the grapple, and I could try my heater out, and we could see what we can get done with this thing. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, just go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. And I'll be sure to answer them for you guys. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. And as always, guys, we'll see you guys in the next one.